All right, guys, welcome back. We had a little, listen, everybody's got internet bandwidth right now, challenges. And then depending on the day, whether or not everybody's angry at Frontier or Spectrum. Although a lot of them have really stepped up for education lately too. So that's been really cool. So Melissa, Ms. Snively, you were talking about, talking about the nutrition and the food.
Yes.
We were talking a little bit about the eligibility. So first one is kids who are under the age of 18.
18, yes. So just because there's been a little confusion about who's eligible for meals. And by the way, my dogs have now entered the house, so you might hear them. But aside from the 4 children, we have 2 dogs. So, and it's hard to control them from barking sometimes. But anyway, so you might hear the dogs. So eligible for meals. There's been some confusion because any child under the age of 18 is eligible for a meal. The confusion was that when you go to a site, they're going to ask you for a student ID. Well, some children don't have student IDs. If they're not enrolled in a public school in Hillsborough County, they probably don't have a student ID. Or if they're in a charter school, a private school, a home school, they may not have a student ID, and that's okay. But they should not be denied any meals. So the directive that I received from the superintendent was, we're not turning people away if they show up and they want a meal. And the children do not have to be in the car. We don't want to expose the children or take them outside of the house if they don't have to be because of the stay-at-home order. So if a parent wants to come by anytime from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at any of the 147 sites that are available, that they are eligible for meals. And so they may get asked about a student ID. If they have a student ID that they can give at least one or more for students in their household, then that's acceptable. That's just for accountability, because the government could come behind us and say, hey, we want to know who you've been giving meals to. And we have to be able to say, we gave meals to these students, and identify who they are for accountability purposes. So, but I have been assured that if anybody gets pushback, say, hey, you know what, the superintendent said that no child is going to be turned away for a meal if they're under 18. They could be, a toddler, or if they're special needs students and they're still enrolled in our school district, they could be up to the age of 22 and be in our school district as an active student.
Well, that's great. I know that there's a lot of people that, before the COVID crisis was dealing with food insecurity. And imagine now that some are even more,
Wow.
and the fact
Absolutely, especially with parents. There's some parents who've lost their jobs, some parents that are furloughed, some parents that are not working right now, unfortunately, because of the shutdown. And so we want to take that part of the anxiety and maybe give some relief in that area. The superintendent also is trying to figure out a way to bulk the meals so that parents don't have to come every day to pick up meals, that they can come maybe once a week and take a meals. That was my son. Take a meal's worth of work, a week's worth of meals, with them, as opposed to having to come day after day after day. So we're working on that as well.
Yeah, because imagine if you are, let's say you're an essential worker, because you work in in a grocery store or a restaurant or something, coming between 9 and 1 might be a little tough every day.
Yeah.
And listen, I think the flexibility has been great. I know that I've seen a lot of people, because posting, because obviously I'm not seeing anybody in person, about that, and so I think it's been great.
Yeah, and people, I think we've gotten a lot of feedback, and people have been they're not shy. I'll put it that way. People are not shy about telling us, giving us good, feedback and telling us how we should be doing things. And so the superintendent has been very gracious and has listened to a lot of that feedback and is trying to make those adjustments to try and reach as many students as possible with nutrition.
Awesome. So Friday is supposed to be a planned holiday. It's Good Friday holiday. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be a non-school day or non-district day or something.
Yeah, it's a non-school day. It used to be Good Friday until some of the board members decided to take that off of the calendar.
Right.
a whole nother political topic. But yes, you are correct that this Friday is a holiday or a non-school day, and so we're trying to get the word out that there's not going to be pickup on Friday. That we're going to have we're trying to get food available so that people can have food throughout the weekend and not have to worry about the extra day during the weekend. So we're going to be closed on April the 10th, but they will be trying to get those 2 days worth of meals out on Thursday, April the 9th, to make sure that they have access.
So when they go, should they tell them anything extra, or is this 2 days worth of food?
They're just going to give them 2 days.
Going to give them 2 days worth of food. All right, well, that's cool. I mean, I think that's probably going to help a lot of people. Again, I'm sure everybody's had a little bit of food insecurity at some point during their life, if they're not encountering it now. And worrying about your kids is definitely tough in the during these times. So I think it's been wonderful that the district has continued to provide that, and how quickly you guys move, or how quickly the district moved. Because again, like I told you before we were on the call today, I have a place in Wesley Chapel, which is in Pasco, and the Hillsborough County moved way faster than I think all of the other counties did in making sure that kids still got food. So tip of the hat to you guys.
I did hear some positive feedback from, thank you. Between the e-learning and the nutrition, I did get a lot of positive feedback from some folks who are outside on the perimeters of Hillsborough County and Pasco and Polk, that said that we were moving quite a bit faster than some of the other school districts in Florida. Sorry about the dogs. Somebody must be outside. Ralph, hey, shh, bye.
What kind of dog do you have?
Sorry. They're barking at my son, who's out on the patio. Apparently.
Got it. They want out on the patio. That's what it is. They want
out on the patio. So anyway, okay. So
yes.
Well,
let's move into the e-learning topic. I mean, I had a Facebook Live with a school counselor here in the district, a good friend of mine, and they were talking about how school. The facilities are closed, but school is not. School is not closed. The learning is not closed, and that has been like the think that everybody.
I'll mute while
This is it's all good because this is just how it is right now during
this is life, right?
Yeah. Hey, you remember the video where the kid came busting into the guy's office when he was on the BBC? You remember that video? And connection issues again. Hello. Oh, looks like we lost her again. There she is.
Faster than the last time. Sorry. So
definitely.
Yeah, e-learning. So you were talking about a friend who is a social worker.
Yeah, well, he's a school counselor at an elementary school here in the district, and we were talking about how it's school may be closed, but e-learning is not. And I guess that's been kind of the prevailing philosophy with the e-learning. What would you say to a parent who maybe is feeling? I mean, because you as a parent are feeling the stress.
I'm feeling overwhelmed because I'm trying to run a business out of my house. I've got 8 employees that are working remotely. I closed my storefront location, and I'm trying to manage 8 people from a distance, and then still try to manage their learning. And they are. We're not doing that great, honestly. It's, I'm getting emails and Facebook messages from teachers about my kids and how they should be doing turning in their assignment, or did they forget to do that? Or don't forget they were supposed to be on this Zoom, and I'm, like running around going, you're supposed to be on the Zoom call. You're supposed to be on the Zoom call. So it's hard. It's hard. And then balancing, I think because teachers are feeling overwhelmed, but parents are feeling overwhelmed too. I think communication is definitely the key there. If Parents are feeling overwhelmed because they feel like their students are having too many assignments or too much work or too many hours, and the teachers need that feedback from parents, and parents also need to be patient with teachers because they're figuring it out too. They're willing to make those adjustments. Teachers are doing a great job. This is all new to them as well, but they're trying to make those adjustments so that they can find that balance of what's manageable for students to be doing, what's realistic for students to be
Right.
doing at home.
What's
like this,
so what would
this eighth grader?
Hello, eighth grader. So what would you say to a parent, who may be in the same position that you and I are in, having to work from home now and manage their students, and like what advice would you give them, so far, based on your experience in, seeing kind of the macro level as a, part of the school board?
I think time management is probably being tested right now by a lot of parents because they're trying to trying to manage their workload, whatever that might look like, in a house full of kids or animals or spouses. And just because I'm here doesn't necessarily mean I'm available to them every single minute. And I think that's the tangible aspect of that is challenging. Take a deep breath, go outside and walk down the street and come back for a minute and get some fresh air. Take a lot of little breaks, and the kids need that too. You don't want your kids staring at a computer for 8 straight hours. That's not normal for them to be. Shouldn't be normal for them to be doing that for classwork. And
before March, what was it? Before March 13th, before Friday the 13th, everybody was like, we got to get our kids off the computers. We got to get our kids away from the tablets. Now we're all like, you know what? This is, at least we're using it for positive things as opposed to endless hours of.
Right. At least they're learning. Yeah. Maybe they're on more for Zoom meetings in their class as opposed to, Minecraft or Roblox or whatever they're doing, whatever they would normally do there.
When students are, on those Zooms, how critical is it for for there to be a parent helper nearby? I mean, have you guys talked about if there's any rules that you guys want the teachers to try and, request parents be nearby, or, just whatever it takes to make it happen? What guidelines has the district kind of given,
for teachers? Well, I know that Zoom is probably the most popular meeting platform, but there are other meeting platforms that can be used, like Microsoft Teams and things. Zoom happens to be probably one of the easier ones to use. We've had to make sure that Zoom has upped their security. We had some issues with security and people, bombing Zoom meetings, which now, by the way, and we want to make sure that teachers set up the Zoom meeting with security, and so that not anybody can just figure out how to get into a Zoom meeting. And so I would suggest that parents be nearby those meetings, just in case. I think it's always a good idea for a parent to be close by if they are available to do so. Some of my kids kick me out of the room because they don't want to see me in, that'd be like me visiting their classroom, right? Coming into their classroom with all their friends and all their classmates, and they're embarrassed by that. So most of the time I have to stay at least a social distance 6 foot away from them, so that I'm not remotely near the camera.
Yeah. Right. Just especially in before we all get on camera ourselves for work. Hey, we did have one comment from a parent. So Tamika, she says, Melissa, I appreciate your honesty and sharing your struggles with the e-learning. Know that you are not alone. So that was really kind of her.
I think we're all in this together. We're all trying to figure out, how to balance it. I'm a little, I'm frustrated with some of my kids and not with other of my kids. Some handle it, some can't handle it as well. So it's just I think we're all pulling out our hair a little bit. But cut yourself as a parent. I say cut slack, kids, cut yourself some slack. This is week 2, so we don't know if we're going to go back to school or not, or if is this going to be the norm for the rest of the school year. So take a deep breath, and we're all in this together. And that's the thing I think that I really enjoy about, aside from the fact that we're in a pandemic, and that's not great, but the fact that for a while there, it seemed like we were all doing our own thing. Like parents were going in one direction, students were going in another direction, teachers were going in another direction, and nobody was on the same team for a while. And that's something that it could be generational. It was very disheartening to see some of that. And so now it feels like, hey, you know what? We are all on the same team now. It's almost like this is, destiny for us to try and hit the reset button on the relationships that we have with our teachers, and really appreciating all that the teachers do for students, and appreciating what the students are learning every day, and appreciating the parents' participation in the students' learning.
Well, I wholeheartedly, agree. It's everybody's on the same side of the fence now. Everybody's got the same, hey, this is not what anybody expected. Let's all work together to make the, make the best of it. I did have some questions from, parents, because one of the things that we do in our program is that I would say, we have a good portion of our student body that is neurodiverse. That they're, they have varying, varying things like ADHD, and some are on, on the autism spectrum, and they have, are the resources that they were, using when they were in person at the school, are those kinds of things still available to them? Are they still able to, are there IEPs and 504s? Are all those still in effect? How does, now we're doing everything over the computer, how does that change or affect the way that, they are doing things? How?
That's probably one of the most challenging situations, as far as that, because now the parents are, full-time, teaching helping to manage a child from home, but the IEPs still have to happen, and the meetings still have to happen. And I know that the superintendent has he's trying to make sure that all of the personnel who help the students who have IEPs or 504 plans or special needs are helping the parent with the management of their child and the learning of their child. And so I think one of the unique things about this virtual learning environment too is because we're not in person, you'll see that there are some students, and say you have a class of 20 students, and some students are going to learn at a faster pace than others do, and normally maybe you wouldn't have the ability for a teacher may not have the ability to stop and help a student who's having a challenge because they have to keep going. But now you've got students who are learning at different paces, and they may be able to go on, and then now a teacher might actually be able to do some one-on-one or small group with their students that they may not have had the ability to do previously. And so for the students who have special needs, whether it's ADHD or dyslexia or any other learning challenges, I'm thinking and I'm hoping, and I haven't heard from many ESE teachers, but I would love to hear from them if they're having the time, if they feel like they're having the time and the resources that they need to help those students that need the additional attention.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, but should they go to their area supervisor? Would you want to hear from them directly?
Well, depending on who they normally work with at the school,
Right.
I think I always tell people to start with the site administrators, because, those are the people who have boots on the ground. And so if they feel like they're struggling, if a parent feels of a special needs child or a child with an IEP or 504 plan feels like they're really struggling, I would reach out to, the school counselor, the principal or the assistant principal, and express the sentiments that they have and see what they can do from the site level. And then if they still feel like they're not getting what they need as far as resources are concerned to be successful with their students' education, then they may need to take it, one step further to the area superintendent or to the district ESE director. And so, but I always say, if you can start at the site level, give the principal and the site administrators the opportunity to help solve those challenges first, right, before you start making phone calls to, district administration.
Right. No, that's entirely fair. And teachers, how they've been given a lot of flexibility in to be able to do the varying paced instruction, or, how.
Yeah. I guess it depends on, as a teacher, how you interpret it, but we'd like to think that, the superintendent has given them the flexibility that they need to do the job that they need to do. And so I'm getting a lot of different feedback. I've heard some teachers where parents feel like the teachers giving too many assignments for one subject. And then there's some teachers that, don't get onto EDSB very, very often. And now they're going to have to get more comfortable with EDSB and using EDSB. So it's quite the gamut of experience with teachers. And I think the superintendent is trying to get all the teachers on the same page. And that's really challenging. We have 16,000 teachers across the school district, right? With varying degrees of experience, and not just subject matter experience and education and instructional experience, but technological experience as well. And so I think it's going to take, again, week 2. So I think it's going to probably take the rest of the school year. And I'm sure by the time the last day of school comes around, everyone will be.
Yeah, we're going to have the last day of school. We're going to have the best day of e-learning ever. Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example of just one of the learning, a specific example of e-learning. One of my clients, we were talking about their e-learning experience over Zoom, and they were talking about how their child had a Zoom meeting with 5 of his teachers at 11 a.m. It's well, he's only going to make it to 1.
Right. Yeah.
I think afterwards, I think they've all sorted it out, but just initially, okay, well, you know what, we actually may need to coordinate with other teachers, and I think it's happening. I just think that sometimes initially the people are going to be a little bit frustrated, and then that's going to cloud their entire view of the whole e-learning experience. And it's never, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not meant to be a replacement for brick and mortar learning. This is not meant to be, this is, the way forward as far as what you guys as a district believe that this is going to be. Sure, there can be a virtual component to things, but just my martial arts program, it's not my intention to do martial arts over the internet, forever.
Right. No, that's true. That'd be pretty hard, I think, to do.
Yeah, well, you have to actually touch other people at something. There has to be other people involved.
Right.
I guess Mike Tyson has a great saying. It's everybody has a great plan until you get punched in the face, and
that's a great.
You kind of learn.
I think that's kind of how I feel. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, and so I think this will definitely alter education from this point forward. I think it'll be a very a moment in time where it's kind of before coronavirus education, after coronavirus. Right. And I think that there's going to be definitely some components of education that will change because we have realized the availability of instruction on a virtual basis. And ideally, yes, face-to-face. Most people prefer, I think, face-to-face instruction, but there are some things that can be done virtually. And when we talk about our vision and our mission and preparing students for life, this is part of it, right? This is part of how we're preparing our students for what happens after they cross that graduation stage, because we've seen that not just school and education is going to change because of this. The way everybody does business, a lot of businesses are going to change their structure and their business model because of this. And so I think that I wouldn't call it an experiment, but this adventure that we're going through together is definitely going to change the face of education from this point forward.
Well, I mean, I was thinking about it as like, this is probably the first mass. Let's face it, every district in the country and many places around, around the world, I think that there's going to be a lot of people who are, who are going to understand this process. And then, should there ever be an emergency situation, you guys now have pretty much a battle-hardened plan, in order to implement. Like, if you recall, a couple of years ago when we had the hurricane that came through here in Tampa, and the district was down for 2 weeks.
We were, and now we know that we are more nimble than we thought we were, right? And so that if that happened again, and it wasn't, if you recall, the hurricane, it wasn't a hurricane per se that was keeping kids out of school, that it didn't hit our area, but because we have most of our schools are evacuation centers and shelters, we were sheltering people from other parts of Florida that were directly impacted by the storm and the hurricane.
Right.
And then kids lost instructional time because of that, but maybe not in the future. Maybe now, if we have to have our schools as shelters for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, that doesn't mean we stop learning, because now we have a backup plan. We know that we can do virtual education for a short period of time, not permanently, but if we have to, we know we can do it for a few weeks again if we have to.
Right. So we have a comment. It's from a Facebook user. I don't know their name because they got commented in one of the groups, because we're actually live in 2 Facebook groups and 2 Facebook pages and on YouTube.
Okay.
No, it's high. It's fancy.
You are fancy.
Yeah. But this person says that if your child has an IEP, you as a parent should know their case manager's name, and that's all probably true. Have that teacher and the ESE specialist at your school. They can reach through EDSB, through the school's website, and by EDSB. Teachers are trying their best to navigate the situation and accommodate all the students to the best of their ability. And I agree. That's totally true.
Absolutely. So again, we're all in this together. That's great information. Everyone should know their case manager's name already. And so, as I said previously, let the site. Hopefully, everyone is, managing it. We're all in this together. But reach out to the school site and the administration and the teachers at the school site first. So, and work with them if you're frustrated. If you are a frustrated parent, but most of us are frustrated right now. So.
Yeah, I am. So, you mentioned a little bit, obviously this is going to go on for several weeks. We don't necessarily know when the definite end is. I mean, obviously, we all have hopes that, April 30th comes around and miraculously we're going to be able to go to school. But I mean, realistically, how, what are you guys doing? What, if you can share some kind of with some of the plans for creating some sort of what is the sustainable road that this looks like? Is, how long is, obviously is nutrition is going to continue, until this is over, or, is there any plan?
We work closely with the federal government for nutrition, to make sure. So we are in constant contact to make sure that we can continue nutritional services for students. I anticipate that if we had to do that, we could do that through, the rest of the school year, and that we would get support from the federal government for nutrition services. So I think the hardest part for folks right now, and what people feel the most for, are seniors, because our seniors they're missing a lot of senior activities. They're not going to get to do some of the traditional senior events that they normally would do, like prom, for example. I don't think anybody had prom before spring break, but if they did, they were lucky, because I don't think most of the high schools are going to have prom that I'm aware of. And then graduation, we still have graduation. It is still scheduled to happen. We're hopeful that we could still have it at the same time and the same location and the same plan until we are told otherwise or instructed otherwise by the governor or the Department of Education. We're going to keep graduations on. However, I know that the superintendent had a working group made up of of students, parents, teachers, and administrators that came up with Plan B, C, D, and E, and just in case we are not able to have traditional graduating ceremonies when we had, originally scheduled that. So, and then electronic devices, we didn't really talk about that. That's probably been one of our other big challenges is the technical divide, the technological divide of the haves and the have-nots when it comes to having accessibility to technology. And so we have really, the superintendent has done a great job of distributing electronic devices. We know that there's more work to do because sometimes one is not enough for a family. We've already distributed over 35,000 electronic devices.
Wow.
We've checked them out. They're still property of the school district, and we're hoping to get them back in the similar condition that they were checked out to families. And we still have about 35,000 more on order, almost 40,000 more on order. And that we continue to distribute, and they're coming in, they're kind of trickling in as they are being prepared for students. So by the time this is over, we will have checked out probably 75,000 electronic devices to different families. And then of course, Spectrum and Comcast are working with us, and we purchased 500 hotspots recently to try and figure out where we're having connectivity issues, because not everyone is in a location that has internet accessibility. And so that's been a challenge as well.
That makes sense. I mean, is there, I sometimes when you're in places, there's there's over the air cable, like cable Wi-Fi, stuff like that, where they're just broadcasting for clients. Have you heard anything from those companies about giving people access to that, at least, to give them, into the networks?
Well, I know Spectrum is trying to work with families to give internet access for free. There was some challenge in the beginning because if people had a Spectrum account, I believe that they had to close out any balance due on their account before they were able to reopen a Spectrum account. But they're, from what I understand, they are now free of charge for students and families to have that accessibility that they need. And then there's still, unfortunately, pockets of students who don't have internet access, even with Spectrum and the hotspots and things like that. And I just want to assure our families that and our parents that if they are one of those families, that the there are paper packets that can actually be, some worksheets and some paper packets that can be put together at the beginning of the week that can be picked up at the school and then returned at the end of the week to the school for grading. So yeah, we're just trying to come up with different ways of reaching everybody, and it's challenging. So we're still looking for that feedback that we need from people to figure out. We don't want any kids to slip through the cracks, and that's the biggest fear I think the superintendent and the board have, is how do we reach every single student in an equitable way? Yeah,
I think that's fair, because this has definitely been an upheaval. We do have a couple of comments. So I guess the first one is with all of the stuff, the conversion to e-learning. I guess this person's question, again, can't see them because of the privacy on Facebook, but will there be summer school?
Not that I know of at this point. There has not been an announcement about summer school unless in addition to what they're doing now. Now there's traditional summer school. There are some students who would normally go to summer school. So as far as I know, that's still scheduled, but nothing out of the ordinary for the students who don't need summer school. There's not going to be an extension of school. I think that's what I hope that's
that might be it. But so summer school for people who need summer school because of the normal reason why you would go to summer school. Right. But no plans right this moment that when we're done on May 28th or 29th or whatever it is,
no extension of school.
There's not going to be like making up hurricane day, like we would have to make up hurricane days or something like that.
Correct.
Cool.
Correct.
So this
So
is,
we're still getting in the instructional time that kids need. There's still going to be grades. Some things have been waived. Assessments have been waived. For graduation, though, the students still need to maintain a grade point average and the amount of credits that are required for graduation. So I will throw that in there in case people are wondering about graduation.
yeah, well, I guess this might be another follow-up question that, we mentioned the seniors and how difficult that, some of the stuff that they're missing, but they're also trying to navigate, the application to colleges and interviews for those things. And, all staff is still working. Like their guidance counselor at their school, they can still contact their guidance counselor and still get guidance that way. If they need records, they can still get records. Really, nothing has changed. It's just that we may be like this. We may be talking to them in their kitchen.
Right. Right. Yeah. Every staff person, every faculty member is still working and should be available to try. And even though it's not the traditional way of doing things, but trying to help students navigate through some of that. I did get a question the other day about Bright Futures, because there's a certain amount of volunteer hours that are required, and a certain you should be allowed to take your SAT or ACT score all the way up till June 30th. They take scores for that to qualify for Bright Futures. And so as far as I know, the state legislature and the Department of Education haven't changed anything, but I saw a petition going around with a lot of signatures on it, and I have a feeling that there's going to be some accommodations made for students who are not able to get those last few hours in that they may have needed, or take that SAT or ACT test one more time before they need it. So I know that the superintendent's going to go to bat and advocate for the students in Hillsborough County. Hopefully they will all do that and allow some accommodation where that's concerned.
Yeah. Looks like we have some more comments, and then we'll finish up with your final thoughts and let you get on with your day. I'm sure you're busy.
Oh, sure. Well, just gotta make sure my kids. I gotta go check Edsby. Like everybody else, I gotta check Edsby.
Yeah. So this commenter, she says, I don't know about the entire county, but our teachers at Beavis are doing an amazing job engaging kindergarten students with daily videos, story time, and assignments. Hats off to all the teachers in Hillsborough County for adjusting to learning or online learning. It's awesome.
Yes, definitely kudos to them. And I'd like to think that all the teachers across the school district are doing similar things to engage their kindergartners and their elementary school students. And I'm going to plug a school board member right now, Dr. Stacy Hahn, who is a school board member in representing District 2. She has started something called Storytime Online. And if you go to the Hillsborough County Public School website, or you go to her Facebook page, every weekday at 11 o'clock, she does Storytime Online. And that's another activity that our elementary school students, any of our elementary school students can engage in. It's fun and it's free, and it's a way that promotes literacy for our students. So Storytime Online with Dr. Stacy Hahn.
That's awesome. We got one more comment, and you know what? This is, I guess this kind of goes along with some of the stuff that you were saying earlier about testing. This person asked, what about it was said all children would be moved on to the next grade unless parents choose to hold them back? Is that still true?
That is still true. That is still true. That hasn't changed. Let me see if I've got anything on. I don't have anything specifically new on that subject. That is the last thing that I heard. So students will go on to the next grade unless parents choose to hold them back. I imagine that we're so close to the end of the year. Hopefully, parents feel comfortable, agreeing with what their teacher has decided if that student should graduate to the next level. I think we depend a lot on our teachers to help determine whether a student's ready for the next grade or not. So, but that's still true.
So teachers are still in the driver's seat of that, of that process. They can make the recommendation to stay back, or, based on kind of, I guess, whatever assessments are being done internally at the school, because there's not going to be state inside the state like statewide assessments.
Yeah, and fortunately, this happened. I mean, think about the timing of this. Fortunately, it's happened towards the end of the school year. Can you imagine if this happened in September or October, and we would all be trying to wrap our heads around whether or not children are progressing or are gaining as far as learning is concerned. And so, not that having a pandemic is fortunate, but the timing of it, if we could have timed it, it's better to have it at the end of the year than to have it at the beginning of the year, because right now there's a lot of assessments that would be being prepared for and happening from now until the end of the school year. So the instructional time is much more important from August to now than maybe from now until the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think that's you're probably on the right track there. I think that for a lot of people, I guess maybe, if they feel like their child needs to be held back, they were already something that they needed to. There was already kind of knew that there was something that needed to be done, and then this was just another setback to being able to accomplish or catch up, and to what needs to be done.
Yeah, possibly this could be shed some light on whether a student was ready for the continuing on, or if it would be better for them to stay. And although we do depend on teachers to drive, like you mentioned, it is ultimately a parent's decision at the end of the day. But I would hope that parents and teachers would work together to determine what's best for the student based on all the information that they have, together. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, still goes back to that communication part that we were talking about at the beginning. Yeah. Making sure that their, lines of communication are open. So Melissa, is there anything else that, that you think that is important for parents to know right now, while you have, you kind of you talk directly to them, tell them.
Sure. I think we've all talked about attendance a little bit. There's not really a way to take attendance on a day-to-day basis. I have gotten some questions about whether attendance is going to count. The teachers are recording attendance on a weekly basis. They're trying to make sure that they're touching base with students on a regular basis, whether it's day-to-day or week-to-week. But that's how attendance is working right now. So nothing's being held against a student. But I will tell you, if a teacher hasn't heard from a student within a week, that red flags go up, and the teacher is going to try and make an attempt to reach that student and make sure that they're staying on track. EDSB, even though it's a little challenging, we've worked out some of the kinks. It's not perfect, but that's probably the best way of communicating between teachers and students and parents to make sure that everyone is on the same page with regard to the e-learning. We're going to get better every day. This is all still very new to everybody. And so I just want to, hopefully give people some encouragement that, again, give yourself some grace. It's only week 2, where we haven't even finished 2 weeks of this. We know it's very challenging for families, but we all want them to know that the school district is here. The teachers, the administrators, the school board, the superintendent are very committed to making this work for students. And we don't know what the future holds. We're going to wait to hear what the governor and the Department of Education decides, but whatever it is, we're going to try and respond to it as positively as we can, and make sure that the teachers and the parents and the students have the resources that they need to at least, get through however much longer this e-learning experience is going to be for them. So we're here. We want to help. We're listening. We're really trying to make those adjustments based on the feedback that we get from parents and teachers. So keep it coming.
So yeah, I think those are some great sentiments. Kind of the thing that I've been telling my own team is that we are really firm in the goal. Like you mentioned what the mission was. We're really firm in the goal to help children to become the best version of themselves through martial arts. How we get there, we got to be flexible and adaptable. And that was, we in our own members Facebook group for all of our members, like me and my wife, who just walked in a couple seconds ago, we've taken to doing like daily Facebook Live updates, because things changed so fast over the last 3 weeks that like we would listen to the 1:30 call that you guys would do, like the emergency policy group would do, and then like, okay, and then interpret the what happened and how that affects us, and then come back to our team. our members, but like, yeah, is remain flexible.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Can I plug one more school board member while I'm on?
You can plug whoever you want.
Their Vice Chair Steve Kona. He represents, I think, District 5, and he does a 3 o'clock update every day from Monday through Friday. And it's a Facebook Live, and it's like maybe 15 or 20 minutes, but he'll answer questions. He'll, entertain comments and feedback. But if you go to his Facebook page at Steve Kona, he does every day at 3 o'clock, he does an update. And so you can watch it live or you can, watch it later. But that could be helpful for things that change on a day-to-day or an hour-to-hour basis to get those updates. Well,
that's great. Before we got onto the call earlier, you and I talked about some phone number resources. Mm-hmm. So if you're having trouble with like e-learning support, what kind of calls would they take for obviously if you need, if there's something you need to talk to your teacher about the actual education, what kind of calls would go to the e-learning support type thing?
I think e-learning support would be questions about, the instruction and not necessarily the platform, because the technology support is going to fall. If you have some EDSB issues with bandwidth or with technological errors, that's going to be where you're going to find technology. Or if you need a device or something of that nature, hardware, software, that's the technology support. But for e-learning support, if you need some help navigating, maybe even navigating a little bit through EDSB, but getting support where it comes from, questions about the actual assignments that are being given out, that could be some support for those families. Or if you're a frustrated parent and you want to just give some feedback about the amount of work that you're seeing or the lack of it, then that would be a good phone number to call as well.
Cool. Also on here, there's some general questions. One, mm-hmm. And then that was the last component that my friend really wanted to emphasize was mental health. Mm-hmm. Because yes, there are going to be feelings of isolation. There are going to be sometimes feelings of overwhelm, and if they need to talk to someone, that's definitely one to reach out.
Well, and right now it's still a little bit of a novelty, and people are they're trying to adjust accordingly and be flexible. But we could get to a point 2 or 3 weeks from now where you're feeling a little bit of cabin fever, or you're, there's a lot of issues and the kids could be feeling trauma or fear or uncertainty. And we want to make sure that we have mental health support services available for any parents or families that are feeling that stress or feeling that fear, and they need to talk to somebody. They need counseling. We want to encourage people that they're not alone, and that we can do this together, and that there are services available for their mental health.
I'm kind of been talking to people about, and I know that you're involved in scouting for a long time. That when you go on a camp, mm-hmm. This is like the second day of camp. It's still fun, but day 4 is going to get a little bit weird,
Yeah, it's smelly.
And you're ready to go home, and
you're tired. You can't sleep well on the, in the tent, on the ground.
Yeah.
So we might feel a little bit of that weariness in a couple of weeks, especially if this gets extended to the end of the school year. Again, take a deep breath, have grace. If you need to talk to somebody, make sure that you're getting the counseling and the mental health support that you need to get through this time. Cool.
All right. Well, Mrs. Snively, Melissa, I appreciate all the time that you spent with us today. I hope that this was useful and helpful, and reassuring that the county, the school district is not, is definitely in your corner. Sometimes people may think that, well, there's these requirements that we got to do because it's public school and we got to do it, but really the goal isn't just that we tick off all these boxes. The goal is that we help each, that you guys help each individual child that is in the system, in the school district. And, I appreciate your efforts, certainly appreciate the efforts of the superintendent and the rest of the school board. And then definitely every single teacher that we encounter, because many of our members are teachers and bring their children to our program. And, I know they're working very, very hard, just, to make everything to work during this time. And so thank you so much for coming in and talking to us. And, if you just hang tight for just a second, I'll end the broadcast and we'll wrap up. Cool beans?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for participating in our call today. It was Melissa Snively, chair of the school board. Right here on the screen, you can see some numbers to gain support. And certainly remember to give yourself a little bit of grace. Give yourself a little bit of flexibility when it comes to the e-learning. And thanks for tuning in and watching us today, and bearing with us through some technical issues, because like everybody else, we're learning this process too. So thank you, guys. Have a powerful day. Actually, I take it back. Make it a powerful day. You get to choose how you respond to situations. And we'll talk to you guys soon.